So that means we have to stay late.
So much not in the mood that
Sooner the better. My sentiments exactly. We could theoretically we could finish quickly. No, we're not going to finish Saturday tonight. That's tomorrow night. We are going to start though Gittin tomorrow night. That's the next Masech. That's what?
Gittin was starting tomorrow night?
Yeah, that's the next one.
What's the next one in the policy? In Durham?
The Durham, yeah.
What could come out with?
I could do no say Pesach, the top of 88 for Mem Dalon base. I could no say Pesach. We know that the Kohanim will make the Pesach if they're Tamei B'Tumah Sato, meaning that they've gone over a place where there is a dead body which is not known to them. Not known to anybody, I should say. Then it doesn't make them Tamei. That's true about the people who eat a Korban Pesach, the people who make a Korban Pesach. The Kohanim will make it. Nazir, how it's true about a Nazir as well. That now, not the Nazir himself, that we know, but the people who do the Korban of the Nazir, the Kohanim, how we know the Kohanim became Tamei B'Tumah Satom, the Korban Nazir is still a valid Korban. So Rav Chizah said, Avina and Sarvi Meimon wanted to say, all of it says, upon him, Tumah Satom is not a problem, upon him it says, because it says that the Korban brings down, the Pasuk is Kiyamus Meis Olav, if a dead person dies upon him, which means basically that we know about this dead person, so then that might be going on the Nazir himself. Not on the Kohen who's doing the vote of the Nazir. Mimadatani who Nazir also Pesach, since it says the Nazir and the people who do the Pesach the same thing. Adam Ra tells us Madanafal Adain, Manafal Adain, whatever's true about one is true about the other, and therefore just like the Kohen by the Pesach, even if he's Tamei B'Tumah Satahom, a Tamei which is not known which is not known to anybody, the Pesach is tar, is kosher, so too by Nazir, even if the Kohen who's making the Korban Nazir was Tamei B'Tumah Satahom, then the Korban Nazir is still a valid Korban.
Could you also say that by definition it's not to home because it makes nafal a love on him, not that he walked over.
No, that's true, but that's about the Nazir, not about the Kohen who did it. We're extrapolating from the Nazir to the Kohen who did the Nazir's avoda. The Korban brought by Nazir at the end of his Nazirus. What? Yeah, well, all of them.
Oh, okay.
The Kohen does all of them. Okay? Ezu Keveratom. Now here we finally get to what is a Keveratom. We had this back in Psachim already. Keveratom is a mace, shenikbar, a mace was buried in the ground, and you didn't know about his presence. Nobody knew about his presence. But not only in the ground, but also shenikbar, Bakash is buried in straw, B'Tevin, in hay, Ba'afar, in dirt, B'Troros, and in stones. But if he was buried not in the ground, but he was underwater, or in a dark pit, or in crevices in the ground, that's not called to home, because the general principle is kosher. The general principle is kosher, it should be iyat. Kosher iyat yochel fano, so anytime you cannot take out the mace readily without digging him up, then that's called a kevatom, that's defines kevatom. V'chon, it should be kol sha'at, right? It's reversing the words from line to line. Kol sha'at yochel fanosa, anytime you can take out the mace readily, because it's only underwater or in air, so then enos kevatom does not have a status of kevatom. B'kash v'tevin einat yochel fanos, I understand. If it's buried in straw and in hay, can't you just remove the straw and hay and remove the mace quite readily and easily? Why does that make a keveratom? Let's say Masisa Lok Rabbi Yossi. Let's say our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yossi. The Rabbi Yossi Amar Tevin ubitlo batel. Tevin only if you specifically relegated that straw, that hay to remain in spot, meaning that you canceled it to the ground, you renounced verbally all intention of ever removing that hay. Only then it's going to be batel, only then it's rendered part and parcel of the ground. But in normal circumstances, it's not. Rabbi Yossi, here, we're saying that the mace buried in the hay is like buried in the ground. So Rabbi Yossi said, Divrei Kol Hi, everybody can agree. Rabbi Yossi said that in order that the Tevin is considered to be nullified vis-a-vis the ground, and in order to do that you have to verbally nullify, that's only when Shebolo Be'ofar, when you mix it together with dirt. And when you mix it together with dirt, then it's interesting. I don't remember this, but we must have had this in the past. When you mix it together with dirt, then it's clear that your intent is for the hay to make for you, or to make for you pitch, because hay plus dirt equals pitch. So then you certainly intend to take it away, you intend to use it in your building. So then, in order to relegate it to the status of ground itself, to make kevratom, you have to verbally nullify its existence. When it's just plain hay in the ground, so then I assume that your intent is not ever to remove it without any specific verbal declaration, and therefore underneath that any corpse is tumas atzahom. Rabbi yesh teven shu kafar. There is hay, which is like dirt, and dirt, which is like hay. Teven shein yochel fanoso, teven where you cannot remove it, meaning you're not going to remove it. That dirt which you're not going to remove is like offer, is like dirt. That hay which you're not going to remove is like dirt, is like offer. V'offer shu keteven, and therefore it creates kevratom. V'offer shad yochel fanoso. And dirt which you do intend to remove at some point, so that dirt is considered to be hareu kafar. That's considered to be, hareu keteven. That's like hay, and therefore it doesn't create tevratom. Says the Gemara, the very Rabbi Yana Amri, in the house of Rabbi Yana, they said, chifo machlotzos. If you cover the grave with mats, butter, then the grave becomes kevratom. Says Marisa Kamei, come see, look how preposterous this seems. If you fill the grave with mats, lo bato. Obviously not canceled to the grave, in the grave it's not kevratom. But chifo machzolos, but if you covered the grave with mats, bato, then it's bato, and the grave is considered to be covered up. The Gemara doesn't like that distinction. The Gemara seems to hold that there's not distinction between putting the mats in the ground, in the grave with him on top of him, or putting the mats at ground level. In both cases, should be considered to be not part and parcel of the grave, and there should not be kevratom leniencies.
Well, if it's in the ground, you still know that it's a grave.
Right.
It may be covering the body, but you know it's a grave. If it's covering over the grave, it might camouflage.
Well, that's not a bad answer. I'm just surprised when it doesn't talk. Say something like that. Okay. Milo, it should be chayos, according to the Mashbiach in Eruvin. So if you fill it full of sacks of air, like sandbags without the sand. So tzricha, we don't. Well, actually, sandbags. Let's call it that. Tzricha. It's a question whether that's considered to be making a kevratom or not making kevratom. Rabbi Zina, Rabbi Yana, Shemir Shlakish, afilu rake. Even though they're empty sandbags, it's still a shiloh. We're talking about it's empty sandbags for sure. You're going to remove them eventually, but no, maybe the sandbags which are empty also are bottled to the grave. Says Rabbi Zina, Rabbi Yana, Shemir Shlakish said, afilu. All right, just do that. Afilu rake. That's all. Even they're empty. Ezu kevratom. What is kevratom also? Besides has to be fully covered. Kol shein adam zochor remembers that there's a grave there. But Chashlomar, why are you not afraid to say Shem Echel B'Sof Olam, maybe some of the end of the world, B'Cheskas HaChai B'Chaye, who's still soon to be alive, because we assume that all people remain alive at any given time. So maybe I'm afraid that he's going to know about this grave, and therefore the grave should not be considered to be kever to home. Says Mara, no, we're talking about the Pater B'Shemotzo Kamtutz. We're talking about a case where we found him broken up, or so when we found him broken up, we assume that nobody knew about the grave, because obviously the intention was not to make a grave. It must mean an avalanche fell on him or something, and that's why he's broken up in the grave. Okay? Tani, we learned En Chosa Kevratom El Meis Bavad. The only concept of Kevratom for leniency is where you have a question of contact with a dead body. Or an avela, but a question of contact with an avela, a dead cow, low. Then there's no leniency involved. Kav v'chomer to kav v'chomer, the Gemara asks. The Gemara is actually asked this question. Ma'im ha-mace. If a mace, it should be. So the Kormei changes, and I think he's right. Ma'im ha-mace shematame boel, a mace who's matame in a tent instead of shenos and mishkav moshe. Delete those words. Ma'im she'en matame boel was a time boel hareos a kever at home. Nevertheless, there's a leniency of kever tom vis-a-vis him. Nevela, a dead carcass of an animal, which is not metambo, take out Shosa Mishkan Moshe, it's simply not true, which doesn't make an Tumah Noel, because Nevel only makes the time if you come in direct contact with it, right? So in addition to that, said Kever Atom is not a Chomer, that it becomes Kever Atom, right, for leniency. So therefore, Ezer Dover Nemar Elachos Kever Hatahom. Where does it have to tell me therefore? What does it come down that tells me that the only thing which becomes Kever was a mace? Lotzi to preclude any clue of Kever, even by Mishka Moshav, even by things that a Zav lies on or sits upon. There is never any kula of Tuma Satom. We always assume that the Tuma is a valid Tuma. Okay, it's only a unique kula by mace. So we have this concept of Tuma Satom. Okay? You could. Just that the Gemara doesn't use it. But you could have said the same thing about oil. That's right. Agreed. Rabbi Yosef Bun said that it should be Bar Kapara here, really. Bar Kapara Shalom Rabbi. Bar Kapara has to read Nosi. Tapa Mem Chesmav. Ad Kedun B'Ma'ora Makura. This is really good back in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that, if you enter a cave and later it turns out there was a dead body in the cave, and we assume you became Tomei, we have to be Machmir, right? So it says that might be true by a Ma'ara which has a roof, because that makes a what? That's what I thought too. No, because the suffix to Moshe Sayach, the Pnei Moshe says, because that makes it suffix to. Yeah.
It's a public cave.
It doesn't matter. It's still considered to be, technically speaking, anything covered to be Rishus HaYachid. Just like by Shabbos, everything covered is technically the rise of Rishus HaYachid. So then they would make a tummy. Afil Marshain, what about it's a cave which is not covered up? So Savar Bar Kapara, again it's Bar Kapara, right? Bar Kapara holds, ain't Safik Tuma Tzapa Pnei Amayim. In that case, we assume that Tuma floating on the water is not Matamayu. Unless you know that it touched you, we don't assume that it was Matamayu. Amalei Rebbe said Adah. Rebbe said to Madai, Bar Pika or Bar Kapara, Oime Bishtusa, Bar Kapara still has a stupid shita here. Ain't Safik Tuma Tzapa Pnei Amayim Tohar. We don't say that just because the tumah is floating on the water, whoever is in the room remains tohar. Ella sheretz, it's only in context of sheretz, of a dead rodent. And therefore, until you touch it, you don't samatama you. Avo b'meis, but a mace who's floating on the water is ka'oimehu. It's as if he's standing up, and therefore, if you have a suffix, you touch him around, you have to assume that you touched him. Okay? Says the Gemara. Kadotanoi, it's like this Tanoim say, Kol hanizrakim, anything you toss, spake on Torah, the suffix is Torah. In other words, I toss you dead rodents. No offense meant. I'm just testing your Torah, Tyra, and Tumah quality. So I have to throw you dead rodents. So I don't know if I hit you or missed you, or you certainly now don't know if I hit you or missed you either. So in that case, we can make and assume that what? Torah. Yeah, missed him. Right? Kol Nizrakim Svegel Torah Chutzi Kazayis and Mace, with the exception of Kazayis and Mace, if it's a mahil, if it's large enough to create an ohel over the person that whom it was thrown, even if it doesn't hit him, but it creates an ohel over him, Shehein Metami Milamato Lamala. They're metami from below and above, meaning that you can create an ohel either by going under the Tomei piece or above the Tomei piece. And you create an ohel by going under the Tomei piece. Okay?
When you throw it, it goes right over your head.
Right, and that actually is the ohel over your head. Okay? So says Gemara, so we see we're machmir by Kazayis Minames. Well, machmir is Kazayis may seem where it's thrown, I should say. And therefore, certainly if it floats on the water, also machmir less it came into contact with you. That's what we're saying. That's the key point. They wanted to test the limits of halacha, obviously. There's no sane reason to throw them. No, he's not too sane. Yes, but he wanted to bring down the other guy with him. Okay? So, Leisa the plea Rabbi Yosha is not arguing Rabbi Yosha. So Rabbi Yosha said, "Tuma tmuna bekarko shabais." If you have a tmuna hidden in the floor of the house, should be ein, not hanazir, but rather ein nazir megalech. The nazir doesn't have to go shave if you walk out of the house or into the house. So why not? Why should not? Just a second. Yeah, the Rabbi Yosha by tuma by karkosh ba'isif. You have tuma which is in the floor of the house. A nazir melech, the nazir ain't a nazir melech. You get a korban. The nazir does not shave. Right now, why not? Why are we not afraid that he walked over that place? It's like we're afraid where they toss it at you or it's floating on the water. Why are we afraid that it hit you here? The nazir walked over it. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan coming outside, becoming shegel. Depends the way he walks. He walks on the side. He walks directly over them. Rabbi Zar Shem B'Yun Amar, Afilu Tema coming outside, even as well in both cases on the side. V'Tema coming Kenegdim are both cases right over them. Ma'u Tom. It's an interesting concept. You can become Tomei v'Ein Megalech. Yes, it's entirely possible that you walk through the house to become Tomei. Right, if there's tumah in the ground, but the tumah is not necessarily going to make you have to shave, because there are many tumas by nazir where you don't shave. Tumas satom, you don't shave. So tumas so this is one of the tumas that the Mishnah says that you break it. That means that you break it, but you don't actually have to be in korban tumah. So you just stop, going to spend the animation. You could pick up later on down the road. Okay, Hamotzi meis b'tchila. Somebody who finds a dead body initially. Now, initially means that the first one is going to find in perhaps a succession. This is, Jeffrey Dahmer's backyard. Hamotzi, what's his name actually was his backyard? It says, the guy in Chicago is his backyard. John Wayne Gacy, right. Hamotzi meis b'tchila, you find an initial dead body. Mushka Darko, not lying the normal way for a dead body. The Korban actually points out that the way a normal Jew dies is laid out. This is the Korban Pnei Moshe. Maybe it's more itself. I don't remember. Somebody says here it's hands over heart, facing up. Yeah. By going actually wearing the famous shroud of Turin. Yoshka's shroud, there's a whole dispute whether it's authentic, and part of the dispute is because it has the guy there has his hands over the groin in the way he's buried, and we don't bury with hands over groin, bury with hands over heart. Okay, so he finds the mace, the betchila mushka v'gedarko lying in normal fashion. Netolo vestful. So you want to move, and you need to move the mace. This actually is interesting, Mishnah, because it really has to do with the issues of moving dead bodies now in Eretz Yisrael. They want to build roads and things like that, and they find dead bodies. Can they move them? So actually, it's not so simple that you can't move them. That's what the sugya is going to be about, whether you can move them or not. Okay, so. Moses makes b'tchila mushka without his line the normal way. Notlo he take him so and 3 tefachim of ground from around him of soil. Motzers now he found 2 notlom vesfuso. We take them and 3 tefachim of ground. 3 heads both actually. 3 finger breadths of ground around each one. Motzers shlosha find 3 dead bodies. That's something else. Image ben zeluzev. Between each one there's midad amos at shmona amos. The Shemona, it's between 4 and 8 ounces to cheat each one. Kilomita kovre, the amount of place where it takes, where a person, where the people accompanying the hammock to its final burial place stand. So then, our razor screw is considered to be a grave city. And Boli Menel Alon, you have to check from the last one and further in the direction, as 3 amos, 20 amos hence, before you conclude that the field is tar. He found one at the very end of the 20 amos. Then Bodhi came in with he broke check from their 20 amos. This is indicative because the fire so he makes it as indicative of the extent of the cemetery. As opposed to if you only had found one to begin with, then of course no Levis was so just to take it and the dirt surrounding it. Oh, here it is. It's more. What's the line normal way? Raglam Mefushatos, his legs extended, V'yodav Alibon, his hands on his heart. Avli Motok Kamtsutsu, he found it broken up on the Omer, I say, Gal, V'nofa Allah, I say, an avalanche fell upon him, Varago, and killed him. So says the Gemara, V'atani, then we learn, Motza Shnayim Mishoynim, Mitzad, B'tzad, we'll say, Mitzad, Margul, say you find the heads of a second pair of dead bodies next to the legs of the first pair. You take them and their tfusa. So why not? Why did you deem it to be a Beis HaKoros? Why did you just take them and the three exposed them among them? So Simon, they want to say kamtzutz ma'u. They want to say that what's kamtzutz? 1 second, let me make sure this is right. Okay, so I mispunctuated. That's what I did wrong. So let me start the Gemara again. Ezu mushkav gedaka, what's in normal fashion? Well, Mushutasos, his leg extended, V'yodav Aliba, his hand on his heart. Hand on his heart. Alimoto kamtzutz, if you say kamtzutz, I knew my gana fall over, I go, find kamtzutz, then I say that an avalanche fell upon him. It's not really a kever. That to be in a normal fashion, not crumpled up. Now, we learn if you find two, one's legs next to the other head, they take them and their tfusa. You don't assume that there's a basic forest there. And Savru Meimar, he wanted to say what's kamtzutz is mao. Roshem Tzad was saying it's not a case of kamtzutz. Their heads next to their feet. So Rabbi Yitzhak said no. We could go on Elaine Nunaya Tzulaya. This is not kamtzutz, the fact that they're so close together. This is like fried fish. Reishi Dein Gavi Uktzei the hay. You put the head of one by the tail of the other. What, sardines, right? Uktzei Dein the tail of this one Gavi Reishi the hay next to the head of the other. So in fact they switch back and forth. It's not a proof of any kamtzutz situation. The fact that they're buried in such close proximity, it happens, such things. Okay, so what is kamtzutz? So kamtzutz is a mate's buried in an unnatural position, or it's broken up, of course. And you find a whole bunch of dead bodies which are kamtzutzim, so I say it's not really a Beis HaKoros, but rather there was some tragedy which occurred there, and everybody died in that tragedy. Like a treacherous mountain pass, or something like that. So it says,
but either way, it's considered a Beis HaKoros.
No.
It's three.
No. If they're heaped together there, we assume it's not Beis HaKoros.
Because it was a tragedy.
Cemetery. What? Yeah.
Because it was just tragedy, not a specific
right.
area.
That's right. Okay. That's probably Raymond. Tamanat elsewhere you said, in all those, Malakit etzem, you gather from your parents bone by bone, bakom tar, and everything is tar. Now, what does it mean, I'll call tar? When you gather the place and everything was up behind there, when you gather everything in place, everything left behind is tar. V'kol tamarachi. Here you require greater stringencies. I think that's the question. I guess so. 1 second. Yeah, basically the question is that you're not allocating enough. Again, let's read inside the third line down. Bo kumra imona the passer imona. Tamar Torah they say Malaket etzem etzem. They're not allocating enough. You gather bone by bone, kol tor, and everything is tor. But ka, you say Romer, you have to gather up the whole body plus the tfusa, plus the layer of dirt around it. That's a much bigger chumrah. How come? So it says the Gemara, Amalei, so he said, back to him, and more about, so look at the next statement. It says, imiskino lekever, if mitchila, if initially it was made into a grave, then he can't just gather bone by bone, yeshul tfusas, because then his whatever came out of his body takes hold of an area. Is that knocking?
No, it's fine.
Are you sure? Sounded very hot. What? Did we ever tell them the combination?
Yes.
Well, it's just an excuse for me to get some soda. A couple of weeks. A couple of months. Okay. In any event, so look at the questions like this. In one place it says you can gather bone by bone. The other case it says you have to gather not only the body, but the secretions around the body. So what's the chiluk? So the Gemara's answer is quite clear. The Gemara says in the fourth line down, Amalei said, "I'm more about straw." You read the next line. It says, "Imiskino lekever," wherever this is, Mishnah Olos, I guess. Imiskino lekever. If you initially designate as a kever, then issue tfusa, then you have to gather the secretions into the dirt around it. But if it's not initially designated as a kever, then you don't have to gather the secretions in the dirt. All you have to gather is the bones themselves. Okay, kama tfusas a kever. How much is tfusas a kever? So kolev shoshet bos, it means you take 3 finger breadths of dirt around the corpse, amako shol yored to the place where the secretions go into the dirt. Okay? Rav Chizkiah said, look at our mission says that you can move bodies, right? Hadamra as much teaches us, mace mitzvah, if you have a mace mitzvah, mutalafanos, you're allowed to move him. Rav Zir said not necessarily. Tipata shnikvar shlobishus could be said where it was buried without permission. Says more or b'shenikvar l'shela. It was buried with permission, but like temporarily. Shela means by query, but it means here temporarily. Okay. B'chash l'masher meis mitzvah who? Maybe it's the meis mitzvah who was permitted to be buried there. So Rabbi Zir said we don't assume that. Shem meis mitzvah mitzvah. It's not prevalent to find meis mitzvah. So therefore, it's unlike if you find an isolated body, not in the vicinity of a graveyard, you assume it was put there shalom b'shus, or was put there, temporarily, and you can move it. Not meis mitzvah, right? As if it's a meis mitzvah, even isolated one is kind of a coma, but we assume it's not a meis mitzvah. Okay? The 3 types of graves. Kever names, if you just find a grave, nobody knew about it. But fine, so you remove it. You remove the body. Pino, once you remove it, Mekomo, its place it should be Tame. The place is Tame, not Torah. It says inside Tame, because we're afraid that there are other Kfarim in the vicinity. You only found one. Excuse me, or maybe the other words, maybe the area is Tame. Also, I know in the grave itself is also the right benefit from, because the mace might have been buried there with permission. We're not sure. That's why we can move it, but we're not. It's also about no. Carry a door. If there's a known grave there, Eimafano, so you can't remove it. You can't remove the body. Pino, if you did remove it, Mokomo tar, the place is tar, because we don't know of any. We know that this grave, we don't have any other graves in the vicinity, so we assume that the area around is tar. And the area around it is mutar and not noah as well. Kavar kever shumazik is a rabbit. Now kever, which is damaging, is debilitating to the masses who are present. And so then, so you remove it. Pino, if you remove it, Mokomo, the place it says here is tome. because there might be other graves there, but the Shai Torah says the Rabbanus Gor is tar, because since Ma'atikas Rabbi, you'll have to move it, whatever's left in the vicinity, assume is not graves, and it's tar. Bas Banoy, but also it's Osir Bano. Hora, the place around it, Osir Bano. Rabbi Abba Bar Kohen Bikfar, Hora Rabbi Abba Bar Kohen Bar Kohen Bikfar Kavio, he passed in the Kfar Kavio, Mikoma Mutter Banoya. No, the place where it was is Mutter Banoya, where the kever damages the masses. Ma'u Polik? What? This is an argument? Says more, no. If the mace came before the city, so he was allowed to be there, and therefore his area is also Banoah. The if the city preceded him, so then he was not allowed to be there, and therefore his grave is not also Banoah. Tani, we learn a very interesting law. Kever, you have a city which grew and grew and grew, and now the Kever Shekifoso are here. They're firing 15-inch shells at us. What? 2-incher? And the howitzers are coming next. All right. Right. Well, Sonny Goy. Beats me. Tani, Kevish, you post here. Mishalosh Ruchos. You have a grave which the city now surrounds it on 3 sides. Okay, the city now surrounds on 3 sides. We find out so you can remove the grave, because it's a nuisance, right? People have to go from one side of the city to the other, and they're going to become tummy walking over the grave. So you can remove the grave. Mishtei Ruchos, if the grave is only at 2 sides, Amifino, so you can't remove it because it's not yet a nuisance, right? Amrachis said, Manamafino, so he said that you can remove the grave, is also Benozin Toshim Amishram, has to be within the air domain of the city, which is within 72 thirds ramas of the city. Manamar Amifino, I skipped the line. I skipped the important line. By Shnei Ruchos, East Tiny Tiny Amifino, so some people say you can remove it, East Tiny Tiny Amifino, so some people say you can't remove it. Amrachis said, Mandamar, so he says you can remove it. When the city is encroached upon it, it is encroached within the city. But also, so it's within 72 thirds of the city. Minor ain't so he said you can't remove it. It's been also right, where it's beyond 72 thirds away from the city, even though the city is developing it on 2 sides. Or one could say, he who says to remove the grave is Baosino, so Kamin, instead of Gam, take the word from the next line, it should be Kamin Hey. If it's like a hay, the letter hay, the letter hay, the korban hay, just in case you forgot what a hay looks like. So then there's actually city on the 3rd side. It's just not a complete line of city, right? It's just a little leg of city, right? So then you can remove the grave. That's enough. You say you can't remove the grave, but also when it's made like Gam, which is just like a dalet, right? And then can't move it because people just go around from place to place. They don't go over the burial site. Says the Gemara, Kol HaKvolos Mispanin. Every grave. Oh, by the way, Tosefim Babasa, the Shai Torah brings it down. Seems sorry. It says that even if it's found on all 4 sides, the graveyard, as long as it's more than 40 amos distant from the city proper, you can't remove it. Okay. More than 50 amos away from it, you can't remove it, regardless of how many sides it surrounds the compound. Says more, we learned, first mispanin. All graves can be removed. Kutikir sides to the grave of a king, the kivrei and the kivrei navi and the grave of a prophet. Now here there's a line missing. The Shai Torah brings it down. Should be Rabbi Kiva says you can even move the kever of a melech and the kever of Navi. They're also mispanin. So Amulo, so they said to Rabbi Akiva, how can you say this? Well, kever b'nei David mispanin. Then the kever of David HaMelech on Mount Zion should be removed because it's the middle of the city, right? Now it's outside the city walls, but it used to be in the middle of the city, so how come they left it be there? If you can move any grave, even a king's. And also the Kvarim of Chulda, B'nai Chulda. Chulda was the Neviah, right? And her grave is in the middle of the city. I don't know where, but somewhere out in the city. So, nobody ever removed them. There it's a proof. There was a tunnel there. From there, the tumah would bore down the and go out to Nachal Kidron. Meaning, the whole problem is that somebody might create an OL over the kever. And that's only if it's tumah or tuta. There's no other way out. If it's not a way out, so then the tumah would not go up. So that's why in that case they made a different opening. It wouldn't be a problem. The tumah, they didn't have to remove the grave. Okay? Says the Gemara, Talmud learned over there. It says when you contract to build a graveyard, you have to make an opening, a courtyard, the opening of the cave which you bury, 6 amos by 6 amos. The full size of a coffin. But here you say that 4 amos is enough. It says anywhere between 4 amos and 8 amos away might be another grave, right? So there it says over there in the case of the burial, you just need amount to you just need the proper amount to I'm not sure how I should just say that, whether I said it right or wrong. Let me repeat it again. If you have, it says more Tamon over there in the case of the contractor, he's got to make. Actually, it should have been the opposite. Over here, in the case of measuring graveyards which are lost, so we assume the bare minimum to hold a coffin, right? So that's Amito medicine, the bed standing still, which is 4 amos. But over there, where we said that you have to make up to 6 amos, 6 by 6 amos for the coffins to stand still during the burial service, that's Momita Choseres, enough room for it to take a lot, for them to turn around. They need to turn around. So you need a little bit more room, so for that you make a little bit larger. So say 4 by 4, 6 by 6. Ad Echon, how far do you have to search for another grave? Ad Kadei, when you find one grave in your field? Actually, you find 3 graves. So you have to search. And this is what it takes for a procession to walk. Notice Amita, those who bear the coffin, Chilufein, those who take the place, Chilufein. And those who would take the place, those who take the place. Okay, Tanina, we learned over there. If you have a vineyard, and for Kilayim purposes, it's got to be 5 saplings planted within 4 amos, no more, no less of each other. Hashem says that that's not a vineyard. The Chachamim say, Kerem, it is a vineyard. Now, there's less than 4 amos between the trees, right? Did I say that before? Less than 4 amos between the trees. That's a critical point. So therefore, each tree by itself, Lichor, will not survive. But they're more than the prerequisite 5 trees. So you can uproot the in-between trees and still be left with 5 trees. Is that clear? Excuse me. So what about where between the in-between trees is less than 4 amos each one? So B'Shem says they're all going to be uprooted because they don't have enough growing space. So if it's not a karam, and therefore Kilayim can be planted closer in. Say top of Memvolo now, karam, it's still a vineyard. Either excess vines who it should be there, you have to cut them out. And we see the middle ones which are there as if they're not there. Okay? So what about here? We have too many graves. They're too close together, within 4 and 8 amos of each other. Says more. All right, Shem Bar Baba Shem B'Yom said, "Kashem Shechalukin Khan." It's like they argue over here by Kilayim, right? Kare Lukin B'Shkunas Kfaras. So to the argue by Shkunas Kfaras. I'm right. Be said below Dami. It's not couple. Now the next 4 lines are very cryptic here. I'm going to read them the way I copied them over in my Gemara from Kilayim when we learned it way back when. Okay, and you can follow more or less, but it's not basically not really the same thing. Tamon over there, which means by us. Meruvachim v'ritzofan. Let's say the graves are space of property. You added more graves in the middle. Yesh Neshchunas Kfaras, it's still considered to be a neighborhood of graves, because obviously the fact that you ran out of space and had to bury people close together doesn't diminish from being a graveyard, right? Ritzufin Ravachan, however, what if there were many together, and then you spread them out? Elam Shchunas Kfaras, and you lost the status of a cemetery. Baramacha, however, by Kilayim, Ruvachim Beritzofan, if you had more than enough vines to create a vineyard, and you put in too many, so that way, because you don't have it, but I have to read. I read it wrong. The properties, and you put them more in years from close shores, it's still a graveyard. With Sufin, if they were too close together, and you scattered them, meaning you have graves every 4 hours apart, and you scatter them, it's not considered to be a graveyard. You know why? Because we assume the way, since they're too close together to begin with, they must have gone there via an accident, right? And therefore it was never a graveyard. And now that you scatter them, it doesn't make it a graveyard necessarily. Okay? Now, Bramach, however, by a vineyard, Meruvachim, there were enough trees in the space, the regular intervals. And then Ritzofi, you put them close together, Machlokas Rabbanan, and I forget who it is there, two Machlokas, two Tanoim, whether it's still considered to be a vineyard, because you could uproot the middle trees or not. However, Ritzufim, if they were too close together, Uravachan, then you made enough space afterwards, then for sure, everybody agrees that that's considered to be a vineyard. Now back to our Gemara. The 7th line down, but here, Mao Pligin, where do we have Machlokas? B'Shabbat Mitzvah Ritzufin, where you found them close together to begin with. Rabbi Shimon Omer Gal Nafal, and Rabbi Shimon says an avalanche fell upon them, Ritzufin, and put them close together. Rabbi Omer says, no, Meruvachina, initially they were buried scattered. Uritz, Hafan, and then somebody put them close together, and therefore it's still considered to be a shkuras kor, still considered to be a graveyard. Now, it says if you find a grave, you have to check 20 amos beyond that. How far do we make a check? So Rabbi Yosef and Maisha Bar Yirmiyah said, Arbim Amo, 240 amos. No more than that. You don't have to check more than 40 amos away from the spot where you are. We don't assume is that far. Now I'm going to read the next line, still in the Mishnah, the way Shai Torah Yisrael reads them, which mean totally not like they are here. Bodek Esrim, you check 20 amos. Umotza, then you found within 20 amos another mace. Bodek, you check, should be Od Esrim, another 20. Okay? You check another 20. Bodek Esrim, you checked another 20 months and you found another one. Ain't no Bodek, they don't have to check. It says Bodek, you don't have to check. Why is that? Because they only made the check up to 40 amos, right? So now 20, then another 20. Okay, it could be goes on, but you're not mechuyev to check. Okay? Bodek Esrim, if you checked up to 20. Is Tani Tane. Oh. One second, brother.
Based upon that,
Borak.
the Rosh says that when you say question.
All right, I punctuated wrong. Let me go back one line. Borak esim matzah bodik odesrim. Borak esim matzah bodik odesrim. Okay, keep check. East side of those who said Tane, those who said Bodak Esrim Umatzah. You could check 20 and you found Bodek you check Od Esrim, and then Bodak Esrim Umota, Bodek Od Esrim. Basically, it's machlokas like this. I'm not sure if I got the Gersa right or wrong, but I'll tell you outside because it's very simple. How far Chazal make you go? They make you go every 20 amos until you finally run out. Finally, go 20 amos which are clean. They only make you go 40 amos regardless of whether they're clean or not. Okay, that's the issue. We could say since Rabbanu made you look, so they may continue to make you look as long as you haven't gone for 20 clean amos without a corpse, or they make you look just until the end of 40 amos, not beyond that. That's the issue. Okay? Says more further. We don't know what the answer is. Says more further. Allah doubt. Call something to any question in Taras. Betchila tar, we assume it's tahar. Achlo nitzkak l'tumah until we have to brand the tameh. Because nitzkak l'tumah, once you brand the tameh, on the contrary, we have to say sfeiko tameh, and besides we have to be metameh. So until you make a tameh, we give the benefit of doubt to the Torah. Once it becomes tameh, then you need a definite overturning to make it to Torah again. Now, Mishiva draking both limits. The non-sequitur, but at the end of the Masechta we have to throw in a bunch of stuff. We check Azab 7 ways to see maybe he doesn't have the actual disease, but maybe it's just a result of some other activity, such as actually before we brand tummy, such as B'machol, did he eat too much? Mishnah, did he drink too much? B'masa, he carried too much? Chfitza, did he jump too much? B'choli, was he sick? B'mara, did he see something? B'hira, did he have a bad thought? But that's what before we make him Torah. Mishanitzkak l'tumah, once he becomes Torah, so we don't question. We just assume whatever that he continues to remain Torah. Also, Sfeiko. To remain Torah, my apologies. Also, Sfeiko, if you have a question about after he became Tomei, whether it was Ones, or there's a suffix, or Shich Basar, or his regular semen, Tameim, they're all Tomei. Sharaglayim Dover, because we understand at this point that it's Mustama because of a Ziva, not because of some other reason. Says,
Sounds like it's a chazaka issue.
right, it's basically a chazaka issue, that's what it is. I think it's wrote down from Sukkim here, as we see. V'time also. You're metamim, esavadayu metame. You're only metamim somebody who's definitely a mitzorah. Anytime mitzorah, not one who's questionable. Lo mutumosan, it continues to be tame. Achi edar shetor, until you know you become tor. Why? Because it says v'tiharo. You're retiring. The same idea. It's about it. You retire. So definitely when you retire, Veda retire, so you're not retiring somebody who is a suffix, and we will stop here for this evening. That's as far as I prepared. That's as far as I prepared.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.